A good evening and a warm welcome to this edition of the Limelight. My name is Tusime Apollo, and let's talk about the devastation and the loss of lives that is happening across our borders, specifically in Kenya and Tanzania, relating to floods and landslides which have hit those two countries severely in the past 1-2 months. And this has been caused by torrential rains that have been pounding the East African region since March 2024. The reports that are coming in indicate that more than 200 people have lost lives in the floods in Kenya, and more than 100 have also lost lives in Tanzania. But of course, the floods and landslides come as a consequence of harsh climatic conditions, and we need to interrogate these situations because it's now becoming a global catastrophe relating to changing climatic conditions and all those issues. Now in the studios, we have been joined by David Kuleba, and David Kuleba is the Senior Programs Officer in charge of forests and biodiversity at NAPE. And NAPE is in short for National Association of Professional Environmentalists. We'll be talking about how Uganda is prepared to deal with such a chaotic climatic conditions in case it happens here in Uganda. Welcome to the program, and let's go straight to our topic. Looking at what is happening across East Africa, especially in Kenya and Tanzania, do you think governments have a way they can limit the risks and the losses and devastation happening?
Yeah, thank you so much, Apollo, and thank you, Soul TV, for hosting NAPE. And I'm here on behalf of NAPE. Like you have mentioned, my name is Kuleba David. I work with the National Association of Professional Environmentalists as a Senior Program Officer, Forest and Biodiversity.
Good.
You asking about Uganda being in position.
Is there anything governments can do to stop or limit this damage?
The governments have, it is true they can. First of all, with the disaster preparedness, you don't have early warning systems. People need to understand in the event that rains are going to come,
yes,
how much of those rains are going to come, when are they coming, in what quantities. Because in some other countries, it will be understandable that rains will be coming in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, or it will be coming in the morning, and it will rain for around 4 hours. So if we have the early warning systems as a country, I think that one can do. And Uganda as a country, I think in the paperwork, they have it. Secondly, you can do risk reduction and management that can be developed at national level. You know, if this thing happens, what will happen? Do you have ambulances? In case of floods, do you have boats? And you can also do early preparation, because these floods, certainly you understand that in this valley there are structures that are already in there. You don't need to have those dams stopping water from flowing freely. Some of these floods are human induced. If you go to some of these wetlands, you will find some commercial houses have come up, or even storage buildings. But if you can have some kind of an understanding and say, this is the waterway. Before you bring in the element of disaster and seeing floods and evacuating them, why wouldn't you deal with that stumbling building that's stopping water from flowing in the right direction? And then you can have infrastructure. You can have, you have seen some places are not even accessible. People have built up to the road. The road is like the rat way. In the event of fire, the fire brigade cannot even get there. So you need to deal with the infrastructure and when there is infrastructure in place, it means that now, in the event that somehow somewhere has caught fire, or in the event that you need ambulances to go and evacuate people from a certain place where there are floods, it will be easily accessed. You can have flyovers, you can have road accesses that you can get there. But it goes back to the government will. Is the government willing to do that?
So are you suggesting that these losses and whatever we are seeing could have been or could be avoided? Or,
yes.
Or are they avoidable, these events we are witnessing?
Not 100%, but in the event of the occurrence of an emergency, if you have the equipment, you have the fire brigade, you have the boats that can evacuate, you have roads to get to where the disaster has happened. Certainly, like you heard of the 200 people that perished, 220. Some of them, it is because of inadequate equipment.
Preparation.
You have one boat or three that can carry 10 people, and the people that have drowned are 50. You have divers or swimmers, less of them. How do you expect like 5 people to evacuate 200 people who have gotten into the flood situation? So the element of equipment. Do we have the equipment? Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the government will? Do we have even the funds? Yes.
Now, I understand that the government of Uganda, through the Office of the Prime Minister, developed a disaster management policy and strategy. Do you think, in your experience and in your opinion, that policy can adequately manage such a situation in case it happens here?
Yes, the policy is very good. It has early warning systems, it has elements of equipment, it has elements of personnel, it has the budget, it has all that. But the bottom line is, do we have the funding? Having a good policy in place and implementation are two different. You can have a very good policy when you say every parish should have an ambulance in the event of, then people are evacuated. Or every homestead or every estate should have an access road. When actually there are no access roads. On the paperwork, there will be strategies on how it should be done. But then, how is it in the actual implementation? How is it done? Then, awareness. To what extent are people aware? Because there should be some studies that are always done. You have seen, for example, in Uganda, before a disaster happens, there are always indicators, there are always those fault lines before landslides, before mudslides. There are always those fault lines, and communities happen to know them. Some of them know, some of them don't. But to what extent do government even go an extra mile and try to do some studies and researches to be able to give that early warning kind of arrangement and inform people that this place, in this place you need to be evacuated, you need to move. That one is, we have the policy is actually good, but it goes back to the implementation. That's where the challenge is. Uganda is kindly donor dependent. You cannot depend on the neighbor's spear to fight the enemy if you are attacked. You must have your budget, your own money that can actually satisfactorily do that. But the elements of bureaucracy, elements of corruption, it takes long. Disaster has happened in Kasese, people's houses have been washed away, but there is a lot of bureaucracy. Before the money is even approved, medical care, things have gotten out of hand. So the policy is good, but I think also it goes back to funding. Do we have the money to fund that? Or we must depend on the donor, or we don't give it as a priority. So the policies are in place, but the actual implementation is where the challenge comes in.
When you read through such a policies and like that disaster management policy, do you find anything missing? Possibly, what could be missing in that policy?
What could be missing? One, the policy in itself is good, but the challenge is its implementation. If you look at some of these institutions, they are not strengthened. There is need to establish a robust institutional framework that can have clear roles on how to deal with the disasters in the event that they happen.
We already have the Ministry for Disaster Preparedness, and I think that's a structural arrangement that directly deals with floods and all these catastrophes that may arise.
How about the personnel?
Okay.
It's not after having this institution in place, but what are the different capabilities that are within that institution? In the event of floods, do you have divers? Do you have people that can save life? Do you have boats?
Okay.
Do you have life jackets?
Okay.
Do you have people that can swim? Because people can drown. You have an institution in place, but you go to an office, you find only these buried people with only stomachs who cannot do anything. You don't find anything like boats that can be pulled, and people even jump and ropes that can pull these people out. So it is not all about having the institution in place. That's why I'm saying, if you look at the institutional framework, it is there, and people that are supposed to be there. But I will tell you, there are no money to facilitate them, to pay their salaries. And you know, with these disasters, they are not like everyday occurrence. They happen once in a while. So the government looks at employing a person maybe for all these years. It's like insuring your vehicle. People have been insuring their vehicles. You reach a point and say, I've driven this vehicle for 10 years. It has never gotten any problem. Why wouldn't I stop insurance? The moment you stop, that's when disaster comes in. But I think the institution is there, but the manpower, the personnel.
Looking at the floods in Kenya and Tanzania, and I think we'll be looking at those videos running. Do you think there is anything to learn from how Kenyans or the Kenyan authorities have handled this catastrophe, or we don't need to learn anything from them?
No, we need to learn something from them. If you look at how badly the situation was, and if you look at to the extent to which the government tried its level best to save lives, if you look at the way floods engulfed the area and the number of people that lost their lives, you will see that there is a lot that was done. And if you look at the infrastructure in Nairobi, for example, in Kenya, the infrastructure is a little bit different from the infrastructure that we have here. Their road network is okay. At least they have boats, they have swimmers, they have divers, they have, at least there's some equipment in place that they are a little bit prepared for the disaster. So our government should also borrow a small relief, and ensure that if something happens like this, do you have the equipment? Disaster is all about being prepared, timely preparedness to rescue the situation that will have befallen you. Because mudslides will not warn you that we are coming tomorrow. No, once it has come, what is the response?
Okay.
And we need to regionalize, because you don't expect an ambulance to go and work in Kasese. You find these ambulances are there, but they don't have even fuel. They ceased to work a long time ago. And even some of these machines and equipment, they are used on a personal ground. You know, you will find some of these government equipment on somebody's farm doing some other work. I've seen some of them. We have even seen them in the newspapers. So you need to regionalize some of these services and these equipment. So now, if this equipment, for example, you are talking about boats, you are talking about these people, they should not be from the office of the Prime Minister from here. No, they should be in Mbarara.
The way the fire department also has been regionalized, that we have fire offices in Mbarara, we have fire offices either in Gulu somewhere. That is what you're saying?
Yes. But also if you go to Mbarara, if you go to Ntungamo, there are very many places, there are gaps in between. Because you'll find in Mbarara, Mbarara is a very big district now. With the two, we have the city and we have the Mbarara. But how many fire extinguishing equipment do we have, for example? If you had two structures burning concurrently, what would happen? So still, I think there is need to a bit enhance and add on the equipment, because the district is something so huge.
Okay.
If something happens for Mbarara, 50 kilometers or 25 kilometers or 40, and fire is burning a building, for example, a vehicle running from Mbarara to Ntungamo will take average 1 hour, and in 1 hour a structure will be finished with its goods.
That is true.
So even if you have equipment in Mbarara, it is for the region. That one to me does not really.
So as professionals, what recommend